Sean Tembo to the program. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Good morning, Ruchi, and a very good morning to all the listeners out there.
It has been a very long time since I spoke to you,
Indeed.
but it's very good to see you. How are you? How is family?
We are well.
Yeah.
We are well. Family is fine. Just tired of being in the opposition. We can't wait to form government in 2026.
Yeah. Okay. How is the party? The party that you represent, the Patriots for Economic Progress.
The party is doing very well. At least we've managed to create a good number of structures across the country, and also our membership into UK has brought a lot of rejuvenation in the party, and we are very anxious about 2026. We feel confident that we should be able to contribute to the change that the Zambian people deserve.
Can I ask why? So again, I haven't spoken to you in a long time. But can I ask you why you decided to align yourself? I guess that's the right word to use. Align yourself with UGA.
I think it was based on the recognition that if we were to stand by ourselves as PEP, of course, eventually we would be able to form government, but we might take a bit of time. And given the state of governance in this country, given the state of the economy, I think we don't have that luxury to keep contesting elections and not winning them. So we feel strongly that by us aligning with the United Cultural Alliance, it increases significantly our chances of being able to form government in 2026, and for us as PEP to be able to contribute to that government.
I don't know the timelines, but I heard one member of UCA in a WhatsApp group that was this audio was flying around maybe like 2 months ago, but they sort of gave a timeline in terms of how UCA came about, how parties joined UCA. And one of the things I found interesting was her line of saying that, the PF or elements of the PF or certain members of the PF were not in the UCA grouping at the beginning. I want to ask you, somebody who, again, I used to speak to before the elections in 2021, and you had very strong thoughts around the party that was in government then. Do you still feel the same now that you find yourself in this grouping that also includes the people that you were quite vocal about in the past?
Luchi, to be honest with you, the way that the PF were running the affairs of the country prior to 2021 was far from satisfactory, very far from satisfactory. And that is the reason why we opposed them. That is the reason why we challenged them. And that is the reason why we were very vocal in opposition. But then subsequent to 2021, when UPND came into office, the way UPND has been running the affairs of the nation since 2021 has been totally catastrophic. So if I were to be allowed to rank them, actually, I would say that maybe the performance of PF was around 60-70%, and the performance of UPND is around 5-7%. You understand? That's the contrast, really. And on any given day, any Zambian that you meet in the street would rather have would rather have lived in the PF era than living in the current era of UPND. That is the extent of the failure of the UPND government. And when I say failure, I don't mean just economically, I don't mean just governance, I mean just across the board. Even basic things like us being able to pay our athletes. You understand? You find some companies complaining there. Kundanaji is complaining, the national team is refusing to go and camp because they haven't been. Those are basic things. When you look at those allowances, are small monies. So the UPND's failure is across the board.
You don't think these failures go further than just the party that is in government today? Again, I don't want to argue too much with you, but just let me argue the point of athletes, for example. This is not the first time that we've heard athletes complain. In the last Olympics, there was a swimmer. It's just that she didn't make the sort of headlines that these two have made because she didn't win. I can almost guarantee if she did win, would have read the exact same stories. But she had similar complaints of allowances not being paid, athletes not being paid on time. So this is a new. I just want to say that there is a systemic issue and a problem here It's not new.
That swimmer, it was in the Commonwealth Games, actually. That was in 2022. It was under the UPND government.
No.
It was
It was before.
It was prior to the UPND
Yes,
government.
it was prior.
But then there was another issue after the UPND as well with the same swimmer, if you remember. Yes. Yeah. So, of course, you can have lapses every now and then. Government, by its very nature, is built around inefficiency and so on. So you can have lapses. And when a lapse happens, it's supposed to be an isolated case, you understand? But not a systematic case of failure. I would rather call it even refusal to pay athletes. Not just athletes, but footballers, not just the men's football team, but also the ladies' football team, just across the board. That goes beyond just government inefficiency. It goes to just a total failure to govern. You understand? It's just a total failure to govern. You as a government, we're not saying we need the perfect government, but what we're saying is that you can do a few things wrongly, but do most of the things right. You understand? Then we understand. You'll say, there's a need for improvement in that area and that area. But you can't just be failing across the board, whether it's a rule of law, lawlessness, you've got cadres invading church premises, you've got the police harassing the opposition, arresting them on very flimsy grounds. It's very difficult now to criticize government without being charged with sedition. And really,
As
Ruchi,
it's been in the past.
Yes, really, Ruchi,
as it's been in the past.
Not to that extent. Not to that extent.
It's not new.
Not to that extent. Yeah, not to that extent. It has multiplied a couple of times. Yes.
But and this is the point that I would like us to agree on. You who's been trying to get away from opposition, me who's had the unfortunate to sit here and speak to all of you. We need to get to a point where we all agree that, unfortunately, there is a systemic issue in this country that affects every government. Every successive government faces the exact same problems. I'm not sure whether it's problems or just the inefficiencies in terms of delivery. And why is that?
That's from our standpoint.
As someone who's never been in government.
Yes.
Yeah.
From our standpoint, Luchi, different administrations have delivered to a certain extent for this country, and they've recorded failures in other sectors to another extent. You understand? When you talk, let me start at the beginning, if you allow me. When you look at KK, he was very visionary in terms of industrializing Zambia. He created industries in almost every corner of this country. And he made sure that the proceeds from our main export, which is copper, were properly utilized. He sent people abroad to be educated in very good universities so that you can have that manpower and that know-how. So he was very visionary in that regard. But then he failed with regard to the issue of democracy, tolerating divergent views. He was clamping down on, opposition voices and so on. So that's his legacy. There's something that he did well and something that he didn't do so well. Then you fast forward to FTJ. FTJ was very good at the issue of liberalizing the economy, allowing free trade, and he failed in a number of areas. The way he did the privatization, it was more about getting rid of KK's legacy than really trying to open up the economy to a large extent. And he was also quite intolerant in terms of divergent voices. We saw how he treated Dean Mungomba and so on and so forth. Then you fast forward to Mwanawasa. Mwanawasa, again, he was quite stern. He was a disciplinarian, so there was some kind of order in government in terms of how things were being done. But then also, I think he spent too much time and resources trying to fight FTJ. A lot of money was spent in that task force, trying to, billions of kwacha, trying to pursue very little money that was recovered. And even the way the lawyers who benefited from that task force were appointed, there was no public tender to allow all law firms to participate in that. So it was literally like just giving money to his lawyer friends, so to speak. So he was fighting corruption, in my view, using corrupt means, you understand? And then you fast forward to RB. RB had his own advantages and disadvantages. And then you had Sata. Sata was, he could get things done. He did not believe in bureaucracy. He wanted action. If he wants a bridge here, you better mobilize as a contractor in a week or two. otherwise you'll be kicked out. So he was a man of action. But even in that action, you find that there was no proper adherence to procedure. We ended up giving contracts without having proper bill of quantities, and then the contractor took advantage, and then they kept varying the contract sum. You've got some roads which were awarded at 50 million, and by the end of the contract, the variations had reached 600 million. In other words, a lot of leaders have got their own, advantages and disadvantages. But with regard to the current administration, let me talk about ECL. ECL, again, I think he was too tolerant in terms of the people around him. He was too tolerant of cadreism, but he had a vision in terms of infrastructure development. We condemned him about overborrowing, but then he was able to show for that overborrowing. He was able to put up infrastructure. The face of Lusaka literally changed under the PF, under President Lungu. You have all these proper roads now, free flow, reasonably free flow of traffic. We had the lower Kafue Gorge coming up. We had the Levi Manawasa being completed, and so on and so forth. We had the Lusaka International Airport. So we could see that, okay, this money is over borrowing and we're complaining, but this is what he's using the money for. Then you fast forward to the current administration. We have President Hakainde Hichilema. The level of over borrowing has more than tripled, because when he took over government, let's say domestic debt, we were standing at about 90 billion kwacha domestic debt when he took over on the 24th of August 2021. Right now, domestic debt, if you go to the Bank of Zambia website, we are standing at about 245 billion kwacha. So from 90 to 245 billion kwacha. You understand? That's almost 3 times, within 3 years. But then you look around to say, okay, what has this money been used for? It's very difficult to point at something and say, that is what the UPND have done, whether in terms of infrastructure, whether in terms of just administration of the government. There's very little to point at. So that is where the challenge is. The biggest failure of the UPND is that they don't seem to narrow down in a particular area where they can say, this is where we want to leave our legacy. So that even if in all other areas they fail, we can be able to remember them in terms of how they performed in a certain area. When you look at the mining sector, the mining houses have always abused this country from the time we privatized the mining sector. And the PF kind of put their foot down in that regard. They put their foot down. And that's the reason why KCM was kicked out, because KCM, they were very selective in the way they were paying suppliers. The suppliers that are coming from India and South Africa were being paid, and the suppliers and contractors coming from Zambia were not being paid. They would go for years without being paid. That is economic sabotage to this country, and no government should allow that. But we saw that after going round and round and round, the UPND decided to bring them back. And those problems are there again at KCM. You understand? So there's no legacy. If they had properly managed the mining sector, maybe we would have said, no, they've transformed the mining sector. If they had increased the non-traditional mining, let's say gold mining and sugarite and so on and so forth, then we could have said they'll have a legacy in that regard. But even that, they are failing to commercialize those aspects of non-traditional mining. We still have Kasenseri not being opened. We still have sugarite in Ruapula not being commercially exploited. We still have emeralds in Copperbelt Rural not properly commercialized to the benefit of the Zambian people. So really, there's no area in terms of the administration of this government that you can say the UPND are likely to do well by the end of their 5-year mandate.
Just on the issue of the mines, sorry, I just want to bring you back to slightly. On the issue of the mines, you and I spoke. Again, I'm so unfortunate because I think you know the unfortunate position I find myself in. But I can ask this question knowing fully well what you once said. And that's what I say when I say I find myself in an unfortunate situation, because you and I once spoke about the way that the mines and KCM in particular was handled then, and how it was repossessed then as being done in a bad way, and that it was inconsistent. I believe was the phrase that you used, inconsistent with legal means.
Yes.
Do you not think that the reason why, and maybe why we can sit here today and say, maybe they haven't done a good job in terms of the mines and some of the inconsistencies, because we can rewind time and say, at the very beginning, it was handled badly, and the only option available, other than having to pay a sizable amount of money in the same way that we did with lab green is to do it the way that they have done it.
Not quite, Ruchi, not quite. At the end of the day, when you look at the issue of copper mining and where we are, in that regard, you realize that the demand for copper is very high on the world market, primarily because of this transition from internal combustion engines to electric vehicles and the need for copper in the manufacture of electric vehicles. So the demand for copper is likely to be very high for a very long time to come. 50, maybe 100 years from now. And that is reflected on the market price of copper. We are looking at a price of between 9 to 10,000, 9 to 11,000 actually, dollars per metric ton. So what that means is that it wouldn't have been difficult for government to identify a better investor for KCM if they had that willingness to look for an investor. It wouldn't have been difficult because regardless of
the potential legal challenges that you may face.
Yes.
You wouldn't be sitting here criticizing them and saying, as a country, we now have to pay in excess of $500 million that we don't have.
No, not at all.
Okay.
KCM, their misbehavior, Vedanta, their misbehavior was far beyond the issue of the way they were treating contractors, and there is an issue of the pollution. You understand? There is a court verdict about which is in our favor, that they polluted Kafue River. So the UPND government could have proceeded to actually terminate their license, their mining license, on the basis that they were not putting in place adequate environmental measures to prevent to protect the environment, and that could have held in whatever court they would have taken us. You understand? So they had another route to take to address the issue of Vedanta, so that they don't come back and continue messing up this country.
What about, sorry, just before you continue, because one of I want to start with, you and I have often spoken about the economy and the state of the economy in the past. Let's do it today. A lot of people that you ask will tell you that one of the reasons why we are where we are currently in terms of the state of our economy is that we're not exporting as much as we should. Now, your exports come obviously from copper. If there's not much production going on from copper, then obviously your exchange rate will do as badly as it is doing now.
That's one part of it, yes.
Okay, what's the second?
The other part is that we are not producing as much as we are supposed to be doing internally. Because remember that the exchange rate is a price, really, of the currency, and it depends on supply and demand. So the higher the demand is, even if the supply is reasonably good, the exchange rate will still rise. One of our biggest problems is that we are importing pretty much everything. So the demand for the dollar is very high, such that even if we export our copper, we still don't get enough forex for us to meet our import requirements. So it's twofold, really. We need to both increase our exports, but also we need to reduce our imports. We need to be self-sufficient. We need to be able to produce as much as we can locally without having to import each and every small item.
So this is industries.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Of course,
so we need more from industries.
Yes, and you're talking about issues of key production inputs if you're going to grow your local manufacturing industry, and those are electricity. When you talk about these key production inputs, you're talking about adequacy of supply and stability of pricing. You understand those two issues? So you need to have an adequate supply as well as stable pricing. When you look at fuel, the pricing is far from stable. When you look at electricity or energy, the supply is far from stable. So you cannot begin to build your local manufacturing base when there is that interruption in key production inputs. And for as long as we don't have a strong manufacturing base, we are going to keep importing things. And for as long as we keep importing things, we are going to need the dollar. And for as long as we need the dollar, the exchange rate will always go up.
Okay, so here, let's rewind a bit. So the challenges that we face, let's start with mining. We've sort of already identified that there is an issue in the mining sector. Do you see, when you listen to those in government, Minister of Mines, he talks about 3 million tons of copper. That's the big line that they're looking at. Do you think that having, I put air quotes, having sorted out the issues with the two mines on the copper belt, do you think that we can reach those figures?
Far from it. When you look at our mining policy, there's a lot of naivety attached to it. When you look at the first budget that the UPND passed in 2021, they gave a lot of tax holidays to the mines. And
they constantly deny this, by the way.
No, it's in the budget. If you've got the speech,
they constantly deny that there are no.
It's in the budget speech.
There's no tax havens.
When we go on a break, I'll put out the budget speech that Msokotwane presented to Parliament. It's there, $3.2 billion. That's
well, he said it right where you said it. He said yes. That no, that's not true.
Yeah,
I'm just telling you what he said.
I'll pull the speech when we go on a commercial break. So they gave a lot of tax holidays to the mines, and those tax holidays were premised on encouraging the mines to increase production, reinvest, just increase production. And their target was that in 3 years they need to reach 3 million metric tons. And after they reach that target, then that's when they'll begin to really tax the mines. You understand? So now the mines are not naive. They'll see, why would they reach 3 million metric tons so that they can begin to be taxed? You understand? So they will just dilly-dally without reaching that target. And when the UPND took over in 2021, our annual production of copper was around 850,000 metric tons. Along the way, in 2022, it dropped to about 690,000 metric tons. As we speak right now, in 2023, our production was close to 600,000 metric tons. So there's a gradual decline in our total copper production instead of the increment that they had envisaged when they gave the tax holidays. You understand? And yet we are losing tax revenue because of those tax holidays. You understand? So that's why I'm saying in the formulation of our tax policy under the UPND administration, there is not just incompetence, but there is a lot of naivety in terms of the way the mining houses would respond to those policies. You understand? They think the mining houses would respond in a certain manner, and the mining houses actually respond in a totally different manner. And even when they see that there is that discrepancy, they are not quick to revisit their mining policy so that they patch up the loopholes that the mining houses are exploiting, at the expense of the Zambian people. So there's a lot of naivety. When you look at the way policy formulation is done in a lot of other countries, of course, when it comes to policy formulation, you can't be perfect because you are not going to, you can't accurately project what the reaction from the market is going to be. But what is key is to ensure that when you see that the response is not as you had planned, you quickly fine-tune it to close the loophole. So you see the response before you incur too much damage, you fine-tune it until you have a perfect policy, whether it's a mining policy or an economic policy or any other policy whatsoever. But our government, the moment they come up with policy, first of all, they want to portray it like it's a perfect policy, such that it becomes difficult for them to revisit that policy and try to amend it when they see that it can't work.
So would the perfect policy here be readjusting this 3 million tons to a much lower number? Would that be what would be considered as a semi-perfect policy?
You know what, Ruchi? The bottom line is that whether we are at 3 million metric tons per annum or we are at 100,000 metric tons per annum, these mining houses are getting copper out of our country. You understand? That's our copper. It's your copper and my copper. And we deserve the right to benefit from that mining. Our right to benefit from our copper does not arise when we reach 3 million metric tons or 2 million metric tons. Even if 1 ton is mined of copper, we need to benefit from that particular 1 ton, yes. So the issue, in my view, the issue of tax holidays is a non-starter. These mining companies are not going to be motivated to increase production because of a tax holiday. They are motivated to increase production by other factors, stability of energy supply, and so on and so forth. We should begin to ask ourselves to say, why are there more mining investments in DRC, in the North Kivu province of DRC, where there is a lot of instability? Rockets are flying by, bullets are flying by, but investors are willing to go there and set up a mine. Why? Why is it like that? Why are those investors not coming to Zambia to invest in Zambia? So there are a lot of underlying factors which have not been addressed. Most important is the issue of stability of energy supply. Because even if they set up a mine, if they don't have the electricity to run it, then they're incurring losses. You understand? So they would rather go somewhere where they can mine and they know that there's stability of energy supply. Even if where they're coming from, they were given a tax holiday. It doesn't matter. So we have our tax policy upside down. We are addressing issues which are not relevant to the mining houses and failing to address issues which are actually relevant to the mining houses.
So you mentioned electricity. Electricity doesn't obviously only affect the mines, but it also affects everyone else at an individual level. 3 years down the line, if you read their manifesto, and if you read many other political parties' manifestos, but they're the ones in government, so let's deal with them. They write in their manifesto about the need to have alternative, energy mixes, solar, etc., etc. 3 years down the line, there hasn't been much movement in terms of getting us switched on to new forms of energy. Does that worry you a little about, and does that also speak to why we find ourselves in this particular situation where we are in a crisis? Isn't even the right word to use anymore to describe what we are going through right now.
The challenge we have is that we have a president who is too preoccupied with looking nice to the masses. You understand? Instead of actually working. When you're actually working, the people who are seeing you work might not understand exactly what you're doing, but you're focused, you're working. You know that by the other day, these people who are not really appreciating what I'm doing will see the results. Yeah? So those two things are totally different between actually working and giving an appearance of working. Yeah. So we have a president who is too preoccupied with giving an appearance of working. For instance, Luchi, when President Ichilema went to Dubai, to the United Arab Emirates, sometime in early 2022, he made a very huge announcement, just like he does every time he goes out, and said that there's a company there which he has signed a contract with, and they'll be coming to set up a solar plant. They'll be producing 3,000 megawatts of electricity, and that will be operational within 18 months. That was early 2022. We are in mid-2024 now. That plant was supposed to have materialized, but it's nowhere to be seen. Just like he likes talking big without really following through with the promises and the commitments that he makes to the Zambian people. If you ask me, this tragedy we are in right now was created to a large extent by the UPND administration. I'll explain why, and that was in two ways. The first way was that at the time that the UPND took over power, we were producing about 3,200 megawatts of electricity, both hydro as well as various mixes, both by ZESCO and these independent power producers. And our total consumption that time was about 2,200 megawatts. So we had an excess of about 1,000 megawatts. That's a lot. That is the one they started exporting. But what happened is that when they were entering into those export agreements, instead of making those export agreements conditional on us having excess, they were so confident that we are going to keep producing that 3,200 megawatts for the unforeseeable future, that the day will never come when we will not be able to produce that. So they were blind in entering those agreements. So there were firm commitments such that we couldn't pull back, even if we were experiencing low output ourselves. That is mistake number one. The second mistake was out of that total 3,200 or so megawatts, a significant portion, I think close to half almost, was produced by independent power producers. So you had companies like Lucefa Hydro, Ndora Energy, Mamba Collieries, and so on and so forth. And there are a lot of other ones which were coming on board. These independent power producers, the concept of independent power producers was created by the previous government. They created the atmosphere, for them to invest, they ensured that ZESCO was paying these independent power producers on time, because these are private companies. So when they pump in $2 million, they would have borrowed, they want to be able to pay back. You can't afford not to pay them. But when the UPND came back, they started segregating these independent power producers because they perceived some of them as being aligned to the previous government, you understand? So they literally wanted to kill them, and they stopped paying them. So a number of independent power producers actually phased off. They shut down. They totally shut down because they were not being paid. Why? Because President Hakainde Hichilema believed in his mind that these were affiliated to the previous government, and also because ZESCO was producing adequate power through hydro. You understand? Then the drought came. When the drought came, those two key wrong decisions that the UPND made, one, signing firm export agreements, and number two, not paying independent power producers, came to haunt us now when the drought came. Because at that time, we were forced to keep exporting power to Namibia, to Botswana, to Zimbabwe. And yet we didn't have enough ourselves. Even as we speak right now, Ruchi, we are still exporting power to Namibia and other countries. You know why? Because we entered into firm agreements. We can't pull out and say, no, back at home, we have 21-hour load shedding, so we can't keep exporting. All we can do is to negotiate with these countries and say, plead with them, not us terminating the contract, but pleading with them. Otherwise, they'll sue us because the UPND entered into firm contracts with these countries. You understand? So we have a situation where at home here, we are enduring 21-hour load shedding, and yet we are still exporting power. So that is the major cause of load shedding. The other one is, I'm sure you saw about 2 or 3 months ago, when the government was scrambling around now trying to pay these independent power producers. There is some payment to Ndora Energy. There is some payment to other independent power producers for them to begin production. But production for them to reach peak production doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process. Maybe by the end of the year, maybe in the first quarter of 2025, that's when they'll reach that peak production, which they were at when they stopped paying them. You understand? So you've got a mix of very poor decisions which have culminated to this disaster now that we have today.
So then what would be the, let me ask, I don't want to ask what the UCA solution is, let me ask what the PEP solution is.
Yes.
But what would the PEP solution be to load shedding? Is it purely, because again, climate change is with us. We have to accept this. We might have another, and this is the thing I don't get, actually. Let me say this. This is the thing I don't get. We've been down this road. We were down this road in the previous government with massive load shedding. We didn't learn anything from that. We are here again today where, and I've said this on this platform, so I'll say it again, I sometimes feel like we've just been waiting for the rains to come. The rains may come. It might be bumper rains. And so everyone will forget about load shedding until the next time that there is a drought. So what is the actual solution? What is the PEP solution to sorting out load shedding?
So, in my view, Luchi, as a nation, we are very blessed. We are very blessed with natural resources, which we can use to develop power. Solar, we can exploit solar. Wind, we can exploit wind. When you look at most of the European countries, they are powered by wind energy. So you find that their shorelines, because most of them are surrounded by water, and on the water there on the ocean, there are high winds, which then reach the mainland. And they've put wind farms all around their shores. You understand? Us, we are blessed because we have relatively flat land. We are not as mountainous as other countries like Lesotho. I don't know if you've been to Lesotho, or most parts of South Africa. They are very hilly. Even Malawi is very hilly. We have flat land. So what it means when you have flat land is that you've got winds which are going at reasonable speeds. You can set up wind farms. But my view is that it's difficult for government to engage in those initiatives itself. What should be done is to adopt the policy of the previous government by encouraging independent power producers. You understand? So you would have an independent power producer putting up a wind farm in Chongwe there. They are producing maybe 30 megawatts and they're supplying to the grid. You've got a solar independent power producer setting up a solar plant somewhere producing 50 megawatts. They are supplying to the grid. But what is key to promote that mushrooming of independent power producers across the country, what is key, Ruchi, to that is to ensure that those people are paid in a timely fashion. Once they are paid in a timely fashion, people will be, admiring, that person, why does he have so much money? No, he's an IPP, he produces power. What does he use? No, he uses solar. They will rush to Dubai, get solar panels, also produce solar. What is key is to pay them on time, which is something that the current government actually failed. Had the current government not sabotaged the independent power producers when they came into office, this load shedding would not be as bad as it is. We would have still had load shedding, but it wouldn't have been as bad as it is. Similarly, if the current government had not committed itself blindly to exporting power, whether we have it or not, this load shedding again would have been there, but not this bad. We would have been talking maybe about 4 to 6 hours of load shedding, which is reasonably acceptable. But we are in this doldrum because of the poor decisions of the current administration.
Do you remember? Do you remember who I was telling a few weeks ago that we think small? Do you remember? No. Okay. There's someone who sat where you sitting, and I said one of our problems is that we think small. You just highlighted something which I had mentioned to him to say we always think of these 30 megawatts here, 10 here, 50 here, 20 here. And I said to him, I said, why don't we just go solar? We don't need to do 20, 30. We do 2,000, 3,000, 4,000. Why are we so set on thinking small and not thinking big?
It's a question of investment, Rushi. It's well and good to think big, but if you don't have adequate access to financial resources, then it will remain a pipe dream. You understand? So it's better you are practical, you do what you can actually manage to do. You understand? And also, when you are embarking in these projects, it's a learning curve. Solar technology is relatively new technology. It is being perfected every day. Even solar panels, when I look at the solar panels I bought in 2018, their efficiency is a very big panel, but it's only 200 watts. Solar panels now, you find the solar panel from there to there, it's a small one, but it's 650 watts. So the technology keeps on being refined. And anyone who is going to invest in that sector can't do it massively at once. They will need to do it gradually so that they pick up lessons along the way and then keep expanding. And also, our access to finance is very limited. You've got ridiculous interest rates. What company is going to borrow at 35% and be able to pay back? First of all, me, I'm an auditor by profession, and I audit a good number of SMEs. There are very few SMEs, if any at all, that actually make a profit of 35% per annum. Very few. So if you borrow from the bank and you're paying 35%, what business are you going to engage in? Is it a legal business? Unless you are into drug trafficking or something sinister, arms trade or something. Otherwise, a normal business, these interest rates are not sustainable. They can't help us grow the economy. And that's another reason why we are failing to basically grow our manufacturing base.
Shouldn't government then, when we talk, and all of you do this, by the way, right? I don't know anyone who is in opposition who doesn't say this, but you all say that it's important for us to have a mix of energy, right? Because hydro is not as reliable as it used to be because of climate change. Shouldn't there be investment from you as government to put money into something like nuclear that you already know, look, it'll take years, yes, but at least 10 years down the line, you will have a steady supply of electricity because you've got this one solar plant, for example.
Yeah, that would be progressive. We would actually consider that. If you remember, Ruchi, there was that plan by the previous government to set up a nuclear power plant in Chongwe, yes. And there was a lot of resistance from the people in there. Despite the sensitization that was done to say, no, this is not harmful, there was a lot of in my view, most of that resistance was actually sponsored by the opposition, specifically the UPND, because they did not want that government to come up with a solution which they can point at as their legacy to say we've cured our power problems. And it comes down to that as well, in my view, Ruchi, one of the reasons we haven't been able to make significant economic progress as a nation is because we tend to prioritize politics too much. We tend to eat and sleep politics. We have very little time to look at the national good, regardless of political mileage or lack of it that is to be made from it. We need to change our mindset. We have become a very politicized and yet poor nation for no good reason. And that is why some pundits have really begun to question, the value of democracy, and whether we would have actually been better off if we were led by a king, the way Eswatini is, where the consideration is just the national good, as opposed to can I win votes here? If those ones score there, no, I'll lose in 2026. You understand? So there has been so much politicization, such that what we actually need in this country is a president who can reset this country. a president who will have the national interest at heart, and that national interest should rank over and above the personal interest as well as the political party interest of his respective political party. If we were to be fortunate enough to have such a president who would be able to reset this country, even if that president was only there for 2 terms, 10 years, our total mindset would be totally changed in a positive way, such that any other president that would come after that, even if they try to misbehave, the people will say, no, that is not the way President Sean Tembo was doing things.
You seem to be advocating for a Kagame style. Okay. Someone said to me, they said, why doesn't the government consider exporting electricity? Would that be in the where we currently are? Would that be a very short-term solution? Exporting to try and deal with these 20, in some areas, more than 26 hours of load shedding. Would that?
You mean importing?
Yeah, importing. Sorry, I said exporting. Importing. Would that be a solution?
It would be. It would be a short-term.
Considering when you hear stories of deaths that were left in the past. But would that be a solution?
Lucien, I've always argued quite at length that any sound economic manager would know that the cost of an economy which lacks energy, the way we don't have power, the cost of that is far higher than whatever the cost of importing power would be. Far higher, far higher. You understand? So, if I was president of this country, I would sacrifice whatever is there in the in our national reserves to ensure a consistent and continued supply of power, no matter what it takes. If it means going to hire a ship from Turkey or ships from Turkey to come and dock in Mozambique there and get power from there, I would do that, because you need consistent supply of power. And Luchi, apparently we seem to be the only ones who don't have that realization here in Zambia, because at the time that Namibia was entering into that import agreement to import, they were importing about 600 megawatts from Zambia. That was way back in 2022, late 2022. Their load shedding was only about 2 hours a day. But they went all over the region to try and identify where they could actually import power, so that they patch up that 2 hours of load shedding per day, so that they don't have load shedding at all. You understand? That is the mindset of a government that actually understands economic management, that actually understands the role of energy in the growth of any economy. Not here, where you have President Hakainde Hichilema even arguing to say, no, but when we export power, we earn dollars. We earn dollars. You earn dollars, but you have load shedding at home.
Is the argument... I haven't heard that argument, but there's an argument that I have heard, which is to say the reason why it's difficult for them to go and import power is because there was a huge sum of money that was left in the past, and the people that we left this debt with do not want to have any dealings with us until we dismantle that debt.
That is a fake argument.
That's the position that I've heard. It's the position I've heard from the chief government spokesperson who was in here last week. That's their position.
So next time they say that you are a journalist, your job is to get to the truth. Next time they make that claim, just ask them to say, can you mention that company, the name of that company, and how much we owe them, so that they are specific. The way to catch a liar is not to allow them to be floating in the air. Narrow them down. Let them mention the name of the company and how much we owe them. Then we can do our due diligence and contact that company. And I can assure you that there is no company where we imported power where we owe money. That is just a fake excuse. Yes.
Also, you don't believe
No,
that?
No, not at all.
Why is that?
Because at the time,
what gives you that much confidence to believe that there was no money that was left unpaid?
Because the only time we imported power is when we brought that Kipu ship there in Mozambique. And that ship, by the time they were leaving, it was cleared. Yeah, it was cleared. There was a small misunderstanding here and there, but eventually it was cleared. And that story was all over the papers.
What was the small misunderstanding? Wasn't it
about the bidding? About the bidding, about how much we were owing them as a country. You remember that matter actually went to arbitration?
Exactly.
Yes, it went to arbitration and it was resolved. That is why. And there was no other ship that came to dock there where we imported power. So I know that issue was resolved. It's on record. If you try to Google it, a news item to that effect would actually show up. Yes.
Okay. Let me take a break for news. We will come back after the break. I believe Mr. Tembo has a few things that he needs to show me. So I'll try and see those things during the break. We'll be right back. This is Tuesday's edition of Let the People Talk.
Tabwera futi na line up y'abantu kuchokera mu Betway. Betway yambala mpamvu kusogolo na tuba ne back boost na super boost Saturday. Ero pakati mukontrola na bosi no tosa maafu.
So me, I'm using my phone for streaming. You have internet. Just look for the 2021, 2022 official national budget.
Muina papi na Betway. Yonekate. Ya lasting way. Betway. Ikontrola na Notaries Board pamoja na Ministry of Tourism.
The Ministry of Lands and Natural Resources will hold exhibitions in the following malls in Lusaka: Levy Mall on the 26th to the 30th of August of 2024, Cosmopolitan Mall on the 9th to the 30th of September of 2024, Novera Great North Mall on the 23rd to the 27th of September of 2024. Come and be part of this exhibition where all issues to do with land, title deeds, and ground rent will be handled by our able staff. Make a date.
Or you can search for 3.2 billion.
Love going home to a bed from Chambaniza Bedding. Chambaniza Bedding, home to the world's best bedding brands in mattresses, bed sheets, duvets, pillows, headboards, and many more bedding accessories for home, hotel, and lodging facilities. Visit our Lusaka outlets at Crossroads Mall, Longa, Garden City Mall Showroom, Greatest Road, Coffee Road Showroom and Clearance Center, Palatine Paints and Southern Cross Motors, Kabelenga Road Store opposite Navy Junction, and Longo Road Showroom and Clearance Center. On the Commonwealth, where BK's Mall, President Avenue, or visit ChambanizaBedding.com.za.
Yeah, because if you're a businessman, are you not going to try and make some money?
Yeah, of course.
We don't sleep.
Have you seen that new place on Munali Road by Toto?
Yeah, I was there yesterday.
So it's a mall?
Awe, it's something different. It has all your shopping needs, but you should also bring the family. They have shops, restaurants, pharmacy, a dental clinic, this new thing called rock climbing, a kids play area, and a games room, and even have a traditional market in there.
Serious?
We bought impwa, even some game meat for dinner last night. Iwe, you have to experience this.
Bonsotunia shopping and recreation. Just what you need. Visit us on Munali Road today.
Leutibim University in Lusaka is now enrolling for the January 2025 intake. You are invited to apply in the following programs: food and nutrition, public health, environmental management, tourism and hospitality management, public relations, international relations, and mass communication, LLB, Bachelor of Laws, business administration, economics, project management, education, primary and secondary, early childhood, nursing diploma, clinical medicine diploma. These programs are offered as undergraduate and postgraduate programs. Come to our Ibex Hill Extension campus in Lusaka and benefit from our scholarship program. Like our Facebook page or call us on 0953 656 029 or 0979 7090. UTBIM University, education service with excellence.
So much distance between us.
Get ready, Zambia. The Stanbic Music Festival is back and bigger than ever before. This time, it's a double header. 2 nights of electrifying performances at the Lusaka Polo Fields on Friday, October 11th and Saturday, October 12th. Brace yourself for the ultimate musical extravaganza featuring multi-platinum award-winning headliners Mario and Music Soul Child. Plus, the very, very best of Zambia's local talent. Tickets are on sale now via Quicket. Golden Circle, 3,500 kwacha. VIP for 2,500 and regular for just 700. Start planning today. Proudly brought to you by Stanbic. Don't miss Zambia's biggest festival, the Stanbic Music Festival. We believe in Zambia and we believe in music. This time check is brought to you by Stanbic Bank.
Time of Phoenix is 10 o'clock.
This time check was brought to you by Stanbic Bank. Phoenix FM. Check. There we go. 106.7 Ponzi. Phoenix FM.
It's 10:01. Welcome back to Let the People Talk. Our guest on the program this morning, Mr. Sean Tembo, president of the Patriots for Economic Progress. If you want to call us, let's see if we can take some calls and also read some text messages for Mr. Tembo. Before we do that, there's a question here about fuel and whether or not you agree with these monthly adjustments of fuel. Is there a better way, knowing in the past the current president, while in opposition, spoke about how fuel could be lower? That hasn't translated. Is there a way that we can arrive at cheaper fuel?
Yes.
Yeah.
There is.
What is that?
Yeah. So,
do you remember, by the way, do you remember when you said to me once, you said that the price of fuel at the time, this was before 2021, that it wasn't the true value of fuel when at the pump price. What we were paying, what we were buying fuel at, wasn't the correct value when you calculated everything you needed to calculate. That wasn't the real value, and then we were paying much less for political reasons. I don't know if you remember that.
Yeah.
Okay, my producer also remembers.
Yeah.
So I'm not the only one. I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, Luchi, the reason we are paying too much for fuel is twofold. Number one, because we don't have long-term fuel storage facilities, not processed fuel, but actually oil storage facilities. Number one. Number two, because we don't have a proper pricing strategy for fuel in terms of the pump price. The MMD government under Levi Manawasa came up with a concept when Energy Regulation Board was actually created. They came up with a concept and they created what they were calling the Energy Stabilization Fund. The way that fund operated is that when the oil on the world market is cheap, they would get that excess profit that is made because you are selling it at pretty much the same pump price. So you would make supernormal profits. They would get that profit, supernormal profit, and put it in that fund. And then when prices of oil on the world market spiked, they would get money from that fund and subsidize the pump price of fuel. So they maintained the stability of the pump price. That fund is still there up to now at ERB, but it is not being utilized. Right now, we are doing hand-to-mouth, so to speak. When Russia invades Ukraine, oil prices shoot up on the world market, or Israel actually engages in a war with Hamas, and ships can't pass through the Mediterranean there, then we are affected directly at the pump. You cannot operate an economy like that. You understand? So the first step we need to do is adopt the right pricing strategy. You cannot be reviewing fuel prices on a monthly basis because you are creating instability in the pricing of a key production input in the name of fuel. You understand? So if I was president of this country, I would come up with a strategy to actually review fuel prices at least twice in a year, which is every 6 months. That would provide some semblance of stability. And I would actually revive that energy stabilization fund so that we actually use it. I'll give you an example, Richard. During COVID, when COVID just started, early 2020, you know that oil on the world market was selling at negative prices. Oil was selling at about -$2, -$3. What that means is that when you buy oil, instead of you paying the supplier of the oil, the supplier actually pays you. You know why oil was selling at negative prices? Because the demand was very, very low, and then those oil fields were flooding. So they needed to pump out that oil, and they cannot pump it out and just throw it on the ground because it will cause an environmental disaster. So someone had to ship it. They cannot get it and go and throw it in the sea. So that is why they were paying people to actually get their oil. You understand? And yet, where are we being paid when we go and refuel our cars on the petrol station here? We were not. We were still buying at almost the same rate. You understand? So the question is, the supernormal profits that were being made at that time during COVID time. Where did that money go? That shows lack of proper planning. If we had proper planning, all that money should have gone in the Energy Stabilization Fund so that next time there's a crisis on the world market, because on the world market, oil prices are always going to fluctuate for one reason or the other. Even just a projection that China's manufacturing sector is set for a boom in the next quarter, that sends oil prices shooting up. You understand? So we need to have that stabilization fund, and we need to run it properly. The other part, maybe I had said two, I'll say three. The other issue that makes our fuel very expensive is the mode of transportation that we use. The pump price of fuel at the moment, out of that pump price of about 33 kwacha, more than 50% of that pump price is actually attributed to transportation costs. You understand? Why? Because we transport our fuel in a very inefficient manner. The most efficient way of transporting fuel, wherever you go across the world, is through a pipeline. And you don't transport processed fuel. You don't transport diesel and petrol. No. You transport crude, because crude is compacted. You understand? So you can transport a whole lot of it in a pipeline than processed fuel, diesel and petrol, which is processed and it's expanded, really. You understand? So we had a government which came into office in 2021, the UPND, and one of their first orders of business was to shut down Indeni as an oil processing facility, as a refinery, and convert it into a storage facility for processed petrol and diesel. As things stand at the moment, we don't import crude oil anymore. We import processed diesel and petrol from Tanzania. So we rely on the refinery in Dar es Salaam. And then Indeni is just a storage facility. What kind of thinking is that? If you remember some time back, I think it's more than a year now, there was a huge shortage of diesel in the Copper Belt especially. And that, nobody could explain it. That was caused because of some industrial action that was taking place, a strike that was taking place at the refinery where we get our fuel in Dar es Salaam. So we are subjected to parameters, to variables that we can't control. And also, if we are going to ensure cheap fuel across the country, and if I was president of this country, I would ensure that one of my priorities would be to set up oil refineries in each and every provincial center. Not only oil refineries, but long-term strategic oil storage facilities in those provincial centers, and set up a network of pipelines from where we are getting the oil in Dar es Salaam to all the provincial refineries across the country, so that the cost of transportation is as low as possible, and we are able to supply processed fuel by road within a short distance. Because when you use a tanker, you get oil, fuel, you get diesel from Ndola, and you take it to Mongu by road. That is very expensive. That is extremely expensive. At the end of the day, the biggest chunk of our fuel pump price is actually transportation, because of the methods of transportation that we actually employ.
Okay. Let me go to the phone lines. If you want to call us, 226841 0978 895 895. If you want to send us a text, 0978 895 895. Let's start with this. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello.
Good morning, sir.
Jujo, how are you?
I am well, thank you. How are you, sir?
This is Mishi. I'm calling from Deke Township in Ndola, Rucho. Thank you so much for picking my call, Rucho.
You're live on radio. Go ahead, sir.
Thank you. Tembo Mulitiani. Mr. Tembo, without wasting much of your precious time, our reliance on hydro energy has proved to be a disaster, especially when we have got a crisis such as drought. Mr. Tembo, don't you think that it's time to start investing in nuclear energy? We have uranium here in Zambia. We can use it. Instead of always trying to rely on hydro energy. Having said that, Mr. Tembo, I'm actually inviting you to have a meeting with President Hakainde Hichilema and share some of those brilliant ideas that you have instead of always bringing them to the radio. Thank you. I'm listening.
Right, thank you very much. Thanks a lot. 226-841-0978-895-895. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Morning. I'm all right. What's your name?
My name is Douglas Muni, calling from Champaya, Chingola.
Taukaruwe ausuasu wakati animao.
Now, God will go Chingola, Mabuto, Oka. There are no jobs for the youth. If you are the president today, what could the view learn about the youth? The huge unemployment of the youth. Here in Chingola, recommending the police and security forces and force. They've curtailed all the illegal mining. The youth are not being employed. The youth are not being employed. As you know, you've got over 6 million unemployed youth. If you are president today, not like Haka in the world, no vision for this country, what you could have really done?
Okay. Douglas, thank you very much. Okay, so Douglas' question is around youth unemployment. Let's take another call. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello, is that Radio Phoenix?
This is Phoenix. What's your name?
My name is Catherine. I'm calling from Mundola.
Okay, Catherine, go ahead.
Good
Ask
morning,
your question.
Tembo.
Good morning, Wamayowa Catherine. Kurishani Gondola.
Yes, Zambia first. Those brilliant ideas that you take to the radio. Have you ever asked for an appointment with your fellow president, Hakainde Hichilema, to give him those ideas in private? That is my question.
Okay. Catherine, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Catherine. Let's take another call. Hello, good morning. Hello. Morning.
Good morning.
What's your name, sir?
This is Kinfred from Madrid.
Okay, Kinfred, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Professor.
Good morning, Mr. Kingfred. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? Mr. President, I'm alive. People are at what you work a whole lot. You should manage to have a bit of a good from them who come here for your man or sister. But you have to see what they have on their profession. Dr. Umbasha, my vision, I know. Whether the problem with our president is this government will deal with Kajasiyama Sola Panel President and our commercial the government, the problem that they are only depending on getting even if we have serious moral issues, we can't get it. So we know what to do. So, you know, they do want it. But this is the first that the government is the fact to regular from the armor battery. You know, then the armor company driving from armor battery. You know, more than the 5 companies. And I want to study bank so that even extra. However, I'm not doing one of my best for the government does not figure out the person is thinking about you to follow some of that. That's the next something. Second thing is the president. I want to talk about the report. I don't know if it's the report or is the what? Mr. President, the always when we give shit and dance, even in that protecting our issues and opposition inside. Because the student which is the prison. And that is, whenever someone else was driving, we don't know what to do. Issues and what to do. The other people in one. You know, they're fantastic. But when you are such a trying to get them what is that the issue of motivation, I like to want to have the thing of the past, that you can come to what you want. But people, come on, our lives, what you want to do, so much for it, and then so what's the going to go forward?
Kingfred. Thank you very much. All right, let me let you respond. There are 4, then I'll go to the text messages, and then I'll go back to the minutes. Yeah. Do you want to quickly respond?
Yeah. So the first question was why can't we invest in nuclear energy? I think we discussed that.
Yeah, we discussed this one. I think maybe you joined a bit late.
Yeah. Ruchi, one of the things that I always find strange about President Hakainde Hichilema and his government is that they don't seem to be talking about any strategic long-term solutions to the problems that we face today. Everything seems to be always short-term, tomorrow, the other day, tomorrow. We need, we need a president who can think strategically, even if the benefits of their initiatives will actually only materialize long after they've left office. You need that kind of selflessness in the leadership of a Republican president. Then the gentleman also asked me to say, have you actually approached President Hakainde Hichilema to be able to discuss the issues you're talking about regarding the economy? That's a very yes. That's a very pertinent question. And my answer to that question, Luchi, is always that when you look at us as political leaders in this country, us in the opposition and President Hakainde Hichilema in the ruling party, inevitably the serving Republican president at any given time is our elder brother, is the biggest guy in the room, so to speak. You understand? So initiatives such as ensuring proper relations between the opposition and the ruling party, those initiatives have to be initiated by the Republican president. Because where am I going to find the Republican president? I'm always fighting with all the people around him. They are always fighting me. I'm always fighting them. You understand? So it's him as the elder brother in the room to say, no, hold your fire, you guys. I invite you to just a brotherly meeting so that we can discuss some issues. Presidents in other countries, like the way they do it in Namibia, the way they do it in South Africa, the way they do it in Botswana, it's in their constitution that the Republican president, every quarter, which is every 3 months, should meet and discuss national affairs with the opposition. It's in their constitution. That ensures that you are being carried along, so that even if tomorrow any of the opposition actually form government, they will not start cancelling projects and just employing very radical policies because they would have been carried around. The serving Republican president would have been updating them to say, you guys, look, we are doing that project and this is the benefit, this is the cost, so you're being carried around. Yes? That is what governance is all about. Governance is not standing on the tallest anthill and shouting at one another. That's not governance. You can do that as politicians, but that will not benefit the people who you are supposed to be serving. Yes? But that initiative, Lucy, like I said earlier, it needs to be led by the Republican president. If President Hakainde Hichilema invited me in a respectful manner, because again, there are certain invitations that come which, border on disrespect. You are being invited for an event at State House, and he says, it's a luncheon or a dinner or whatever it is. He says, you can only come alone. I'm a party president. You understand? I'm a party president. How can I go to State House alone as if I'm just a small boy in the street? You understand? That's you're inviting me, but you're undermining me at the same time. You understand? If you want to truly invite me, just allow me to come with my delegation of at least 5 people, so that if I drop my whatever, my agency will be able to help me pick it. Yes. But why should I go there alone? Even a funeral. That's why most of these funerals which are by invitation cards, I don't attend. Because you invite someone, I'd come alone. So I come alone there, then what? You understand? I need my people around me. I need my Secretary General to be able to discuss and confer on certain issues. I need my agency. I need my security person. You understand? So when you invite people, invite them in a respectful manner. You understand? So that you can begin to create an atmosphere of dialogue, an atmosphere of mutual respect.
Can I ask? Sorry, just on this point, and I won't dwell too long on this. But have you ever thought to yourself, let me accept the invitation, let me go, and let me tell him that, look, Chief, I can't come on my own. Next time, maybe I should allow us to come with a few other people.
I've never thought about that.
There you go. Okay, let's move on to another question. There was something from Kingfred. So okay, let's begin from the last point that Kingfred made, because this is something that we were supposed to address earlier on. The UN report that was issued that has gotten a lot of reaction from the government. So let me ask you this: does it concern you that rather than addressing what the issues were, they've decided to go the legal route, which is talk about the procedure that was taken by the UN, by that UN report?
Yeah, they're basically clutching on straws. But Ruchi, this is not the first report which has actually condemned the human rights situation in the country. There was a report that was published in 2022, even 2023, by the U.S. State Department. I don't know if you remember that report. Yes. It was very, very critical. In fact, it was more critical than this report. But they didn't want to challenge the U.S. State Department report because they would be challenging the U.S. You understand? Now the UN is a faceless organization. That is why they are very vocal, challenging the UN report. But the bottom line is that the issues which were raised in the UN report are very, they are facts. Those are facts which everybody is able to see. As we are speaking right now, Russia, we have the Gen Z, 3 Gen Z individuals, activists who are in Lusaka Central Police and have been in Lusaka Central Police cells since Thursday last week, led by Jason Mwanza. And now, I don't know, I'm sure you saw the video that Jason Mwanza did when he went to do a lawn protest at the Freedom Statue. That video, he was merely complaining about the lack of employment. He was complaining about the continued road shedding. He was complaining about the cost of living. And he was very respectful. He was referring to President Hakainde Hichilema as president. You understand? He did not insult. He merely expressed himself. So why go and arrest a youth who is merely complaining about the way the country is being run? And he gave notice to the police. We saw copies of the notice in compliance with the Section 5 of the Public Order Act. He complied with that. It was a wrong protest. He wasn't even supposed to do that notice because the Public Order Act actually applies to, gatherings of 7 people or more. You understand? So he did not need to comply with the Public Order Act, but he complied. It was a wrong protest. He was very respectful in his complaints, and he left the place without damaging anything. So why was he arrested? And why are the police refusing to give him bond? As we speak, I was at Central Police on Friday, and they did the warrant and caution and the arrest when I was there, actually. I was present. But they refused to give him bond. He spent the weekend in police cells. Monday, yesterday, he was in police cells. Yesterday, the lawyers applied for habeas corpus at the High Court. Why should it take lawyers to apply for habeas corpus before someone is taken to court or given bond? Yeah, that is abuse, total abuse. That's, President Hakainde Hichilema has taken this country to a very dark place. And in my view, 2026 elections will be more than just an election. We are going to be fighting for Zambia's second independence.
Okay. All right. Let me read you a couple of text messages. First of all, someone says, what have you seen? So his first question is, what's your view on big corporations and big nations that meddle in nations' affairs? I don't know if you have a take on this. Big corporations, big nations that meddle in.
Like which one?
There's no example, unfortunately. So if you don't want to touch it, it's fine. His second question is, what have you seen in Mr. Lungu that's impacted you to change your heart in terms of joining the alliance? Yeah.
Well, like I said, Ruchi, the time that President Lungu was president of this country, he led the country to the best of his abilities. And from my standpoint at that time, I did not agree with the way he was governing the country in a number of areas, especially the issue of cadreism, you understand? But you fast forward to this day, you realize that actually now we have more cadres than we had under the Patriotic Front. The only difference is that the cadres under the Patriotic Front used to wear regalia. The cadres under the New Dawn actually wear police uniforms. You understand? So, whereas the cadres previously were not being paid salaries by you taxpayers, today's cadres wear police uniforms and their salaries are being paid by you, the taxpayers. Because the extent of cadreization of the Zambia police is something that is very shameful to me as a former police officer. You have a situation, Ruchi. You have a situation whereby we gave a notice to hold a rally on the 21st of September in Petaoke. We submitted our notice to the officer in charge at Petaoke police station. And the police refused to receive or acknowledge our notification. That is unprecedented. It has never happened. You understand? It's totally unprecedented. So you have that level of cadreism in the Zambia police, not the cadres who are private citizens, but cadres who are actually police officers and who actually carry guns. They've been radicalized and they've been meant to believe that the only way they can remain in employment is if they tow the UPND line. And they are towing that UPND line without shame whatsoever. You understand? So cadreism, getting to think of it now, the level of cadreism under ECL was better than under HH. When you talk about the economy, one of the things that I used to object regarding President Lungo's leadership was the issue of borrowing. I was very much against that because about half of the budget was being funded by borrowing, and I kept insisting on that issue. You fast forward to the new Dawn administration, up to now, more than half of our budget is still being funded by borrowing. And the difference between the borrowing that took place under ECL and the borrowing that is taking place under President Hakainde Hichilema is that there was something we could see in terms of infrastructure under ECL, where he was spending the money. Under President Hakainde Hichilema, we are not seeing any infrastructure. Most of the money which is being borrowed is actually being stolen by the UPND. When you look at the Financial Intelligence Center Trends Report, you find that the amount of illicit flows out of the country has increased systematically. In 2022, it was about 28 billion. 2023, it was about 34 billion. You understand? So now those billions, Ruchi, those billions that are being pilfered out of the country, who has access to those billions? You and me, we are very broke. The PF are always in court. Most of them struggle to even find transport money to go to court because all their properties have been seized. You understand? So who has access to billions which are being reported in the Financial Intelligence Center Trends Report as being, sent out of the country, as being pilfered out of the country? The only people who have access to those billions, 34 billion kwacha, is the UPND, is President Hakainde Hichilema, his ministers, and the people around him. So that is why I'm saying they are borrowing and stealing that money. It's very evident.
So one thing that you just said that somebody wants to check on you, when you said the cadreism in the past is better than today's version of cadreism.
Yes.
So they check on you and they say, in the space of 3 years, Mr. Tembo has not been beaten, but he was beaten by PF thugs.
Well, actually, Ruchi, if you compare the two attacks I've had, under the PF, we were attacked in Cairo Road, outside there, in Cairo Road. Under the UPND, I was attacked at home. The cadre police officers came to break down the door at my house and assaulted me at my house. So which one is better cadreism? Cadreism where you are attacked when you are out there at the road, or cadreism where the cadres come into your house, break down the door, and assault you in front of your children? You answer me that question.
Okay. All right. 268410978895895. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Uche.
Morning.
Honorable Tembo,
We know applaud you, Makabanjum.
Dr. Proud from Uganda. For example, Honorable Tembo, we want to come with but to join the UPND alliance. We want more people, including you can help the government of President H. Yes, I would want to take you anywhere but short Tembo. There is a by-election which is coming. Contest, adopt your candidate. UPND right now, we are going to move in that studio. No any beating. What do you want? You want Barungu. You need a president which is empowering his own family. Well, is there family Barungu? You are money. Go to Mwanawasa family, Kaunda family. They are poor to Banjanangera. With this thing, we are going to buy out. At one political party to come, including the people of Zambezi, I was spoken, I was in Zambezi ceremony. The Gumbidia made, they say, Longo stem of life. Short Tembo stem.
Okay, Proud. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, Proud. I don't know if there's if you want to respond at all.
There isn't much worth responding to.
Okay, all right. 2268410978895. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Hello, can you hear me? Okay, lost you on that line. Let's try this other line. Hello, good morning. Okay, lost you on both lines. 2268410978895. Hello, good morning.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning, sir. What's your name?
Hey, my name is Dean.
Deez. Okay, Deez, go ahead.
Mr. Tembo, why are you believing in God? Said something and made some statements. How are you responding? You are believing in someone that is supposed to hear from you and maybe later you have been put for you. So you answer everyone. Everyone who goes there. You have something to say. Just you have something to say. Thank you.
Okay, so Deez, you don't have anything to say. Okay. Anything else to say? Okay. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello?
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Ruchi.
Morning, boss. How are you?
I'm fine and you, sir.
Okay, what's your name, sir?
I'm Michael Chitonka from Monze.
Michael, go ahead.
Good morning, Mr. Tembo.
Good morning, sir.
Yes, sir. I wish to thank you for your wonderful comments which you have talked and let the people talk. And in Zambia, we need a strong opposition in civil society to give checks and balance to the current UPND government. Because right now, at the moment, we can give opposition we are weak. And as we are celebrating 3 years of UPND, I wish to urge them to allow freedom of assembly, freedom of expression on radio, TV, and Facebook, and freedom of worship, and freedom of movement, and to fight against corruption as long as the police, inspector general, PPP, and the anti-corruption commission both and the chief justice are appointed by the president to fight against corruption will be selective because they can't bite the finger that appoint and fix them. And finally, I wish to urge the ruling government to allow public media, certain PCs and institutions of Zambia to email to cover the opposition. Like that, the moment even if you finish 15 minutes, if I listen to the news, and 19 hours, 2 videos, it will be boring documentaries, data and skilled newscasts. Please, we need a democracy in Zambia. Democracy is about avoiding disease and allow the opposition to give you checks and balance. It's not like as we are talking now, they want to hear that after 2 hours, that Mr. Tembo was arrested by the police. No, allow democracy to prevail in Zambia. Democracy at the moment Zambia is under siege. Thank you very much for taking my call.
Okay, all right. There you go. That's democracy right there. Okay, let's take another call. Hello, good morning. Hello? Hello? Okay, nobody understand. Do you want to quickly respond to the last caller before I get accused of not allowing you a chance to respond?
Yes. Actually, there's a very critical caller called Douglas Muni from
Yes.
Chingora. He was asking about your complaining lack of
employment,
yes,
yes.
how are we going to create youth employment. Let me start with that and I'll come to the last one. Luchi, the bottom line is that the majority of our citizens are actually youths. They are persons, in fact, about 70% of our population is made up of people who are 35 years and below. You understand? And a significant portion, again, of those youths are not educated. You understand? They are not educated. When I say they are not educated, I don't mean they don't have a degree or a diploma. I mean they didn't even complete their grade 12. You understand? But they are Zambians. They are citizens of this country. So the question is, how can they be carried along? Okay. So for us, we have always believed that it is not possible to employ each and every person. And that is why you need to be able to create a way of allowing people to earn an income through entrepreneurship. And for people in the copper belt, this country is blessed with a lot of minerals. You understand? These people can actually engage in small-scale mining. Okay, they can engage in small-scale mining where they just buy picks and shovels and go and start digging. You understand? But the process now of getting a small-scale mining license at the Ministry of Mines is very cumbersome and complicated, that it does not accommodate poor youths who don't have access to huge chunks of capital. You cannot have such a policy. You need to categorize small-scale mining into various categories and even accommodate a youth who only has a pick and a shovel. Give him a license. Let him dig the ground. If he finds an emerald there, he'll go and sell it legally. If he doesn't, he'll dig another place. If he wants to give up and go and grow cabbages instead, he'll change. You understand? But give them the opportunity. The trouble of what is happening now, especially in the copper belt, which is that most of the small-scale mining happens illegally. You understand? That is where I'm sure you heard the youth. Mr. Douglas was even admitting to say most of the illegal mining has been stopped. You understand? But the challenge of only having an avenue of mining illegally is that even when they come up with that copper or emeralds, they are forced to actually sell it at giveaway prices to mostly foreigners who have a license. You understand? Meanwhile, the actual labor is being done by the Zambian youth, and then they have some proceeds. They are not able to realize the true commercial value of that those minerals. They end up selling at a giveaway price. Our people are being exploited in our own country. You understand? Why can't government intervene and ensure that a fair opportunity is given to every citizen, regardless of how much capital or lack thereof they have? Give them an opportunity. Yes.
Okay. 226841097889585. This is from Wiseman. Wiseman says, I totally agree with Mr. Tembo. As a country, we are too politicizing. We only think politics even where we can put our minds together and solve issues. He goes on to say, however, my question to you, Mr. Tembo, is why did you choose to align yourself with people you condemned before, just like you condemned this current regime? How can we trust you by the route that you've taken?
Yeah, I think I've reasonably answered that question. On any given day, Ruchi, President Edgar Lungu is by far a better president than President Hakainde Hichilema. On any given day, on any given morning, any given afternoon, he's a far better president. You understand? And I've illustrated to you. We have a situation now where President Hakainde Hichilema has created an elite group who are benefiting. Even his own people in the UPND, the majority of his people are languishing in poverty. You understand? The majority. There's just a small clique of individuals. Even when you go to Southern Province, Lucha, I've been to Southern Province in a lot of areas. When you look at the levels of development, critical roads are not being done. And yet, the roads going to President Hakainde Hichilema's village is the only one which is being attended. Even near there, they are building a huge police station. You even wonder, in the middle of nowhere, why are you building this big police station? You understand? We've got needs within Southern Province where people don't have water. Animals are dying because of lack of water, because of this drought. You understand? You drive there with a vehicle, people will run to you thinking that you've brought relief food. And you ask them, you don't have any relief food. They tell you, we were promised relief food, but none has come so far. You understand? So you can take care of people in terms of their distress. Then where is the leadership there? Because, initially, I had I must admit, I had a bit of a warped mindset because I only used to travel to Northern Province or travel to Eastern Province. So when I see the levels of hunger and the failure by government to actually deliver relief food, I used to think that in other areas, which are UPND strongholds, food is actually being delivered. You understand? That was what I had in mind, because I was only visiting certain areas and not other areas. Then I was shocked. When I went in the rural parts of Southern Province, I realized that the levels of hunger that I would find in Chama, sorry.
Don't worry, the insurance.
Yeah. The levels of hunger that I find in Chama, the levels of hunger that I find in Kawambwa are the same levels of hunger I found in Gwembe. You understand? Yes. So I said, so this money is not delivering anywhere after all. He's not delivering, whether he's strongholds or not his strongholds, he's not delivering anywhere. So that is the level of the failed leadership of President Hakainde Hichilema.
Okay. Richie says, kindly ask your guest on his take on the alleged looting of natural resources by top brass PF regime leaders, and if it was him who was elected in 2021, would he have investigated them and the people for corruption?
Yes, of course. In terms of the fight against corruption, again, if I were to look at that, Richie, my view is that if you are truly going to fight corruption, you need to you need to you need to be independent. You need to be an independent president in terms of the extent of your affiliation to your political party. You understand? You need to be a national leader. Before you are voted into office, of course, you are riding on the Chipani. It is your party. You understand? But when you become a Republican president, there is need to actually partially divorce yourself from the extent of your affiliation with your party. You understand? So that you can cease being a party president and become a Republican president. And once you become a Republican president, then you can begin to fight corruption, even that corruption which is being perpetrated by your party members. You understand? Because the challenge we have today is that President Hakainde Hichilema is so affiliated to the UPND. In fact, he is more affiliated to the UPND than he is affiliated to Zambia as a nation, such that he can fight any other corruption, but he struggles to actually fight corruption within the UPND. But, Luchi, previously the corruption, of course, corruption is mainly perpetrated by the people in power who have access to contracts, not those in opposition. So when the PF left, most of the people who were corrupt were in the PF, isn't it? But when the UPND went there, most of the people right now who are corrupt are in UPND. So there is no way that corruption can be effectively fought by just fighting corruption outside of UPND and not within UPND. And on that score, Ruchi, President Lungu did quite well, because under President Lungu, we saw ministers being dismissed and being prosecuted. You understand? We saw Emery Nkawanshi, who was actually jailed. We saw Dr. Shitaro Chirufya, who was in court. We saw Honorable Ronald Chitotera. When he was a serving minister, they were relieved and prosecuted in court. That, in my view, shows a semblance of having the backbone as a president to fight corruption. Under President Hakainde Hichilema, even just to reveal the names of ministers who are being investigated is a taboo. It's a taboo. We saw cases of a minister exchanging bundles and bundles of cash. But up to now, nothing has been done to that effect. If that was a legitimate transaction, why was it transacted using bundles and bundles of cash? Why didn't they use the normal banking system? You understand? And yet, the Anti-Corruption Commission have not found anything worth pursuing there. They have not done any warrant and caution. They have not investigated that case, because the warrant and caution is recorded when the police are informing you that we're investigating this matter. In other words, that matter was not investigated. But most profound of it all, Ruchi, is the fact that when that scandal broke and videos circulated like wildfire on social media, President Hakainde Hichilema issued a statement within 2 hours. Okay, he issued a statement within 2 hours to the effect that his minister was innocent and that he is waiting for his explanation, but he's sure that his minister is innocent. So you can see the appetite to defend those who are affiliated to the UPND as far as corruption is concerned. And he is hoping to effectively fight corruption. That will remain a dream, Luchi. It will remain a dream. It will never materialize.
Here's a text from somebody. My worry for this country's democracy is that we don't fully understand how politics and politicians work. Every politician who has been in power has become rich, whilst we, the common Zambians, are falling into poverty. You look at MMD, politicians' wealth administration before and after. You look at PF leadership. And now how the current leadership will turn out. You politicians all have political enterprise mindset. You are not here in that studio to help Zambians. You just want your 5 to 10 years in office, make you and your friends rich, and revote again. If voting really works, why do we still have hunger, unemployment, power issues, health issues, infrastructure issues from UNIP, MMD, PF, and now UPND?
In fact, those are very genuine sentiments, Rochi. And for me, that has always been my worry. it has always been my worry that the people of this country are going to begin to lose faith in our political system. And my fear has always been that that may translate into voter apathy. You understand? You know, that disgruntlement, Ruchi, mostly came about after the UPND came into office, because on paper, President Hakainde Hichilema looked like the savior that Zambia has been looking for. Even me, I interacted with him during the opposition alliance days quite extensively, and I had my doubts about him, but after he became president, and after he gave that speech at Community House, that unifying speech, I began to believe that maybe this is the man that we have been waiting for. Maybe he will deliver us from this constant underdevelopment that we've been experiencing as a country. And then, with the passage of time, it began to dawn on me that my initial doubts were actually very well founded. And then you fast forward to this day, President Hakainde Hichilema has turned out to be a total disaster, like across the board, like whether economic management, governance, rule of law, just across the board, absolute disaster, total disaster. So that has a very significant influence on the masses, because the masses feel disgruntled. They say, but we had so much expectation in this one who looked very good on paper. He was said to be an economic manager. He was said to be rich. He had created his own wealth, and now he just wanted to create wealth for the country. You understand? So on paper, he looked very good. And then it turned out to be totally different. And I understand and I sympathize with the sentiments of the people who are disappointed, not only in the current administration, but in our entire governance system, in our entire political system. And they have a right to ask questions, to say, are we going to be able to liberate this country using our political system? Are we going to be able to find the right president to run the affairs of this country in a selfless manner, in a competent manner, using this current political system? They have a right to ask that question. Sometimes, Ruchi, I must admit, I do ask myself that question too.
Okay, K, it's a very good question from K. K says they all speak well and mostly politics, but they never address the challenges faced with a patriotic mind. They all see failures until given a chance to change the narrative. Not all is bad with UPND, all was bad with PF. What we lack is genuine love to move Zambia to greater heights. That's from K.
Yeah. If I was allowed, Ruchi, to just give a quick diagnosis of our politics and where I feel we get it wrong. When you look at the transition from KK all the way to where we are, the presidents that were removed from office through the ballot, by the time they tried to abuse the people, they tried to abuse the system so much, such that by the time they were being removed, it wasn't just removing them like we want to change leadership. People actually hated them. You understand? It was premised on hatred. By the time KK was leaving in 1991, people didn't want anything to do with KK. They literally hated him. You understand? The same thing with the FTJ and his third term, shenanigans, and the same thing with the PF, literally. You understand? So now the trouble with that is that when people remove you at the stage where they literally hate you, they literally hate the government, when the new government comes in, they find it very difficult to embrace anything that you did, whether it was good or not. They find it very difficult because they are afraid that since the people hate you so much, and now they've put you a new person, you shouldn't be seen to be embracing anything to do with those people that we removed, whom we hate so much. It was the same thing with the FTJ. FTJ didn't want, in my view, based on his economic policies, didn't really want to get rid of the parastatals the way he did through that privatization, where we were literally giving away companies like Zambia Sugar, Zambia Breweries, and so on and so on. But he wanted to erase the legacy of KK because the masses at that point hated KK so much they didn't want anything to do with KK. So my view is that if we are going to begin to get on a path of progress as a country, we need to stop politics of hatred. You understand? Politics should be based on who can run the affairs of this country better, or that one has run the affairs of this country to this extent, that's what they can afford, let's excuse them, let's put that one, without premising it on hatred. But our politics continue to be toxic, they continue to be toxic. When you have a UPND supporter or member there and a PF member or supporter there, the way a UPND will look at the PF or the way a UPND will look at Tembo, the insults that the UPND were throwing at me when I went to attend Maureen Manawasa's funeral at the cathedral, like, why are you insulting me? So I was walking and they kept hurling insults, at me. So I decided, let me just go and greet them. And when I reached close and started greeting them, they all kept quiet. So why are you insulting me? You understand? I have a different approach in terms of how this country should be run. I don't believe in President Hakainde Hichilema. I don't think he's the right man for the job. But does that make me deserve the insults you are hurling on me? Let's not premise our politics on hatred.
Sorry, is our biggest problem the fact that you've just said, actually, I think you've actually just summed it up really well. But do you also think that the last statement that you just made is our biggest problem? That if you become president, I should try as much as possible. I may not agree with you, but I should try as much as possible because your success is my success as a people, right? But sometimes it feels like that's not the case in our politics. Whoever ascends to the presidency is looked down upon by those who are in opposition to the point of ridicule and disaster messages being sent in their direction. And that as a people, we just don't come together and say, look, we all have the same common issues that we all need to band together and get us in the right direction. But for whatever reason, our politics and our politicians don't do this.
I agree with
it's
you.
you against us.
Yes, there's a lot of bad blood between a ruling party and the opposition, between a serving president and the opposition leaders.
And yet you all drink coffee together, which I find weird.
Yeah, but Ruchi, if I take you back to my earlier point, to say, because I don't want to apportion blame, to say the opposition are the ones to blame or the president is the one to blame. But I'll take you back to my earlier point where I said, in any political dispensation, the serving Republican president is the big brother. It doesn't matter his age; he's a big brother. So if there is unity that is to be built, he is the one who is in the best position to actually initiate that and facilitate that. You understand? If President Hakainde Hichilema tomorrow woke up and there was an event or maybe a funeral or whatever it is, and he invited President Isi to say, Mr. President, let's attend this together. And they went and sat next to each other and they chatted every now and then. Do you think there would be so much acrimony in the country that is there between the opposition and the ruling party? It wouldn't be there because the leaders are able to mingle in public, but you have an atmosphere whereby the two can't be in the same place. They can't be in the same location. So what do you expect in the rest of the way down when you actually drill down? It will be worse. You understand? So I strongly feel that the day that we have a proper president in this country, the day that we have Tembo as the president of this country, we're going to cross that Rubicon. We're going to say, this acrimony, this hatred over one another, let's put it aside. Let's grow this country. And maybe, Richard, let me bring you to another point. In my view, the other thing that creates that acrimony is the fear of the newly elected president that the guy who has been removed might come back. You understand? The fear that he might come back and remove him from office. So there's that fear. And that fear is multiplied the more the serving president fails to deliver on the promises of the people. You understand? So it is being multiplied. It is being propelled. So the more people complain to say, the economy is not doing well, no, there's hunger, no, there's no relief food, the more the serving president feels unsettled, and the more he looks around and says, who can really challenge me? I think it's the one who was there before. So let me cramp on him. Let me remove all the possible means that he can use to get back to power. Let me invade his businesses. Let me drag all his children to court and dispossess them of all their properties, including spoons. So it's based on fear because you have failed to deliver, and now you're looking around who can take over power from me. Instead of you delivering, you're looking around who can take over power from me.
But do you not believe in accountability?
Sorry?
Do you not believe in accountability?
Yeah, of course I do.
That everybody should be held accountable.
Yeah, I do.
For whether sins that you may have made.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that includes family members. Etc.
Yes, of course. Yeah. And I also believe in the rule of law. I believe in justice.
Why do you think that it becomes victimization if leaders cannot explain how they have amassed the wealth that they have?
So it's about the way it is done. One thing I have a problem with the way the UPND government are fighting corruption, alleged corruption related to PF members. It is not really the fact that they are fighting that alleged corruption, but the way they are actually doing it. You understand? Take, for instance, the properties that were seized from the First Lady, from Honorable Tasira. Those properties were seized without the benefit of a trial. You understand? Luchi, the only sure way of determining the guilt or innocence of a person is through a trial. You understand? Me, I can't come to you and say, I can accuse you, that's something different, but I can't begin to punish you based on my accusations without proving those accusations in a trial. You understand? So the moment you go to people and 2 days later you grab property from people without a trial, then there's something fundamentally wrong with that. That is no longer law enforcement. That is no longer fighting corruption. That is harassment. You understand? That is harassment. And that is why I also have a problem with the compensations that are being given to UPND members and supporters. You know, I'm not against the idea that a person who was unlawfully incarcerated should get compensation, because I know a good number of UPND members and supporters were unlawfully incarcerated. I'm not against that. That is perfectly fine. But it is the way it is done. You understand? If these people, once they sue government, they go through the process. You know, they have a trial, they have a court to actually determine whether indeed they were unlawfully incarcerated or they were actually guilty of an offense. It's not everybody who was unlawfully incarcerated. Some of them deserved to be locked up. You understand? So the court system has to determine that. And then if the court system determines that, okay, this person was unlawfully incarcerated, then that case should be taken for assessment of damages. It goes to the registrar of the High Court to assess the damages, to say, this person, before they were locked up, what were they doing? Were they in gainful employment? Were they running a business, or they were just sitting at home? Because those are some of the considerations which are made to determine how much the damages have to be. If this person was in gainful employment, they were getting a lot of money at their salary, they actually lost that job, blah, blah, of course the damages will be high. Then at the end of the day, they assess the damage and say, this one will get so much millions, that one will get so much. That one, I would have no problem with that. But where you have a system whereby a person today goes to sue the government, the following day, the Attorney General is sitting on a desk with that person and agreeing on how many millions that person should be given. That is theft of public funds using the Attorney General. You understand? And that the Attorney General, one day, he shall be held to account. It's just a matter of time.